The Galactic Council cafeteria fell silent when Empress Vathora entered. At 12 feet tall, with obsidian exoskeleton plates and 4 arms that could crush durasteel, she was a living monument to the Krill Empire's dominance. Her crimson eyes swept across the room, and diplomats from 100 worlds suddenly found their meals fascinating. She selected her tray, specially reinforced to hold the mineral compounds her species consumed, and moved toward the seating area. The crowd parted like water before a warship. Elsa watched from the serving line, her mop bucket beside her. She'd worked as a janitor on Station Concordia for 3 years, long enough to recognize the dance of fear and politics. The Empress approached a long table where Ambassador Kital of the Zenthi Collective sat. Without a word, the ambassador gathered his things and relocated. The pattern repeated at the next table, and the next. Elsa had seen this before. Power isolated as surely as it dominated. She finished filling her bucket and wheeled it toward her usual spot, a small table near the viewing port where she took her lunch breaks. The Earth rotated slowly beyond the transparent aluminum, blue and white and beautiful. She unwrapped her sandwich, a simple thing of synthesized protein and actual lettuce from the station's hydroponics bay. The shadow fell across her table like an eclipse. Elsa looked up at Empress Vathora, who stood holding her tray, mandibles clicking in what might have been uncertainty. Every eye in the cafeteria was fixed on them. "This seat taken?" Elsa asked, gesturing to the chair across from her. The Empress's translator collar rendered her response in flat English. "You are not afraid. Should I be?" Elsa took a bite of her sandwich. "I figure if you wanted to kill me, my being scared wouldn't change much." A strange sound emerged from Vathora's throat, something between a growl and a laugh. She attempted to sit in the standard chair. It groaned, buckled, and collapsed. The crash echoed through the cafeteria. Elsa stood and walked to the storage closet, returning with 2 reinforced maintenance crates. "Try these. They're rated for cargo loaders." Vathora studied the human woman, then carefully lowered herself onto the makeshift seat. It held. She placed her tray on the table and began consuming the crystalline nutrients her species required. They ate in silence for a moment. Then Elsa said, "Earth has a saying, 'Heavy is the head that wears the crown.' You look tired." The Empress's secondary arms twitched, a krill expression of surprise. "You speak of exhaustion to an Empress? Your species is either brave or foolish." "Janitor," Elsa corrected. "We're practical. I see things other people miss, like how nobody sat with you in the 3 weeks since you arrived for the treaty negotiations. I am Krill. We conquered 40 systems before your species developed warp capability. Respect through fear is our way." Elsa shrugged. "Sounds lonely." Vathora's mandibles clicked rapidly. Agitation or amusement, Elsa couldn't tell which. "The Krill do not experience loneliness?" "Sure." Elsa finished her sandwich and pulled out a thermos of coffee. She poured a cup, the aroma filling the space between them. "That's why you keep trying to sit with other people instead of eating in your quarters." The Empress went very still. In the background, ambassadors whispered frantically into communicators. This human janitor was either incredibly brave or signing her own death warrant. "Your species defeated the Argoth swarm 3 years ago," Vathora said finally. "The Argoth who had ravaged the outer colonies for a decade. Do you know how you accomplished this? Better tactics? Stubbornness? Cooperation." The Empress leaned forward, her massive frame somehow conveying intensity despite the alien physiology. "Humans work together in ways that baffle other species. You are weak individually, yet you achieve the impossible collectively. Even now in this cafeteria I observe it. The Zenthi ambassador sits with the Vax trade minister despite their governments being rivals. The Pleiadian delegation shares a table with the Terran observers. And you're alone," Elsa said quietly. "The Krill Empire spans 200 worlds. We rule through strength. But strength—" Vathora's voice trailed off. "Strength isolates." Elsa sipped her coffee. "You know what I do all day? I clean up after some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. I see their trash, their messes, their humanity, or whatever passes for it in their species. You know what I've learned? Enlighten me, human janitor. Everyone's scared. The Zenthi ambassador? Terrified his government will recall him if he fails. The Vax minister? Her daughter's sick and she's millions of light years from home. That Pleiadian over there? He's never been off his home world before and doesn't understand half the protocols." Elsa gestured around the room. Everyone's just trying their best and hoping they don't screw it up. I command fleets, Vathora said, but her voice lacked conviction, and I bet it's exhausting. Elsa stood, gathering her things. Lunch is almost over. I've got to clean the observation deck before the afternoon sessions. She paused. Same time tomorrow. I eat here every day. The Empress stared at her. Why would you offer this? Because you asked if the seat was taken. That means part of you doesn't want to eat alone. Elsa smiled. Also, I could use the company. It gets boring eating by myself. I could have you executed, you could. But you won't because then you'd have to eat alone again. Elsa headed toward the exit, pushing her mop bucket. Behind her, she heard Vathora's voice. Quieter now. Tomorrow, then, the next day. When Elsa arrived at her usual table, the Empress was already there. She'd brought 2 reinforced chairs, and the day after that, Ambassador Ketel hesitantly approached, asking if he might join them. By the end of the week, Elsa's small table near the viewing port had become the most crowded spot in the cafeteria. At its center sat a 12-foot alien Empress and a human janitor, discussing everything from interstellar politics to the best way to grow tomatoes in zero gravity. Leo, the station's maintenance chief, watched from the doorway and shook his head in amazement. Only Elsa, he muttered to himself. Only she could accidentally diplomacy her way into changing galactic politics during her lunch break. The treaty negotiations concluded successfully 2 weeks later. As Empress Vathora prepared to depart, she stopped by the janitor's closet. You never told me your name, she said. Elsa Martinez. Pleased to meet you officially, Your Majesty. Elsa Martinez. The Empress extended one of her 4 arms. The Krill Empire owes you a debt. You taught me that strength need not mean solitude. Elsa shook the massive claw carefully. Just don't forget to sit with people sometimes. Even empresses need friends. As Vathora's shuttle departed, Leo found Elsa back at work, mopping the corridor outside the diplomatic suites. You know the whole station's talking about you, right? He said. You made friends with the scariest being in the galaxy. Elsa wrung out her mop. She wasn't scary, Leo, she was lonely. There's a difference. Only a human would think that, Leo laughed. Yeah, Elsa agreed, smiling at the Earth visible through the viewing port. Maybe that's not such a bad thing.